welcome to the Search for Meaning podcast. And to everybody listening or watching, today's guest, we've got Clara Parati. She is a psychedelic integration specialist. I will let her explain what a psychedelic integration specialist is, and we can go from there. Clara, welcome.
Oh, hi, Julio. It's so good to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor.
Yeah, and it's good to, really excited for the conversation that's to come as well. So, yeah, psychedelic integration. Psychedelic integration is about taking the insights and the experiences that you had during your psychedelic ceremonies, plant medicine ceremonies and circles, and use them to create change in your life, like real life change. And really use them as well to align your actions with your value and who you want to be in your life. So it's quite deep work. I also do psychosynthesis with psychedelic integration. So I'm a psychosynthesis coach as well. That's one of the tools that I use for integration, which is a soul-based psychology. So I do both at the same time. They are companions of each other.
Can you please break down what psychosynthesis means? Because I myself haven't really looked into it, and I'm going to be honest. So, can you break it down a bit further? What psychosynthesis actually entails or means?
Of course, yeah. So psychosynthesis is a transpersonal psychology that's been created by Roberto Assagioli, which used to be, because he's not alive anymore, an Italian psychotherapist that trained with Freud and then Jung as well. So it's like I would say, it derived from Jungian psychology as well. So it's a framework that really works with the personal aspects of the self, but also the transpersonal, meaning what is beyond the personal, meaning spiritual aspects of the psyche too. So that's why it's really good for psychedelic integration, because that's what happens in a plant medicine journey, that you have a journey towards the transpersonal beyond just yourself. So that's the framework. And what psychosynthesis, it's got a lot of different principles, but one of the main ones that I use for psychedelic integration as well is also working with integrating different parts of the self, which are called subpersonalities, which you could see as different aspects of yourself that you might not want to look at. So in shamanism, there's called also shadow work, and there's lots of like bridges between psychology and shamanic work. So there's much more to psychosynthesis, but in a nutshell is a transpersonal psychology that helps you work with your personal kind of like aspects, but also the transpersonal, so you can connect to your soul's wisdom.
Yeah, that's really, really cool and interesting to know that this framework kind of came down from a really top scholars, learners like Freud and Jung. Do you think they ever took psychedelics to kind of get into this work?
How do I know?
It's just a random question, because I feel like when I listen to Jung or Freud, I always think, I'm sure you've done a lot of psychedelics to be going into this much depth. But anyway, that's just my judgment.
No, I think it's a really good kind of point, a good question. I don't know about Freud and, but Jung, I would say there's a very good possibility that he did kind of take psychedelics. And anyhow, like his framework, the psychology that he developed is very shamanic in principle, with, active imagination and journeying and really using, trance states in a sense to transcend potentially, challenges that someone has. So, whether he took them or not, what he did was very trippy.
Yeah,
we can say that.
Really
yeah.
trippy and profound work that is done for a lot of people. Yeah, diving deep into the psychedelic integration part of things, and I'm also going to talk for viewers that like are not clued up or have knowledge on psychedelics and the use of psychedelics, because a lot of people seem to still think that you're just going to take drugs and there's a lot of stigma around it. So when we use these plant medicines, we go into deep processes and deep journeys and uncover parts of ourselves. So this is where you come in to help us, to help people that have been on their journeys to retain the lessons they've learned and to integrate it into their lives. Please talk a bit more about that and how the process works.
Yeah. Well, integration, like the way we create change, is very personal and subjective. So I'm gonna generalize, but it's different for everyone. So everyone does integration in their own special way. Although I have, some tools that I use that really helped me a lot. A lot of the work that I do is about creating the space where people can do their own healing. It's about empowering other people. So I want to just say that as a premise, because there is not one formula for everyone.
Yeah.
And a lot of the work that I do with people and what comes up is that in plant medicine journeys, a lot of the time, people get to revisit either, past experiences that they haven't digested very well, that have affected them, and that have created some kind of internal split, where they're not connected to themselves, to their authentic self as much as they used to be. Or just aspects, of themselves that had derived from, having had challenges again in the past, or having them in the present even, and that come up with messages. So this is just one aspect, because there is also, I think I was talking to you about this the other day, there's light and dark. So I don't just focus on the challenge. There's a lot of light, love and light that comes through these journeys as well. And that's really what supports people in being able to look at potentially either the trauma or the challenge or whatever feels uncomfortable during the journey. But that discomfort, usually that's where the growth is. There's a reason why the medicine puts you in a space where you're challenged, because there's a real opportunity for growth there. So you want to say something?
No. I'm just acknowledging. Okay. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, the tendencies in journeys that the plants, depending on which medicine you use as well, different medicine have different effects, and it's different every time you take it anyway. But there's a lot of people say shadow aspects coming up, but I think there's just aspects of the self. I don't want to label them, dark or light. And usually, as I said, the challenging aspects have a lot of information there for growth for people. But also there are other aspects, and that's what I call the transpersonal, your connection to your soul. And, eventually kind of like it's really the connection to source. A lot of information or messages can come through there too. So it's the work that I do is about processing the experience, and the way that I look at the experience is not just the ceremony. It starts from days before the ceremony. I actually ask what was happening before, was happening during, and that's the preparation that I do with people. Usually if I can get someone before they even go into a plant medicine journey, that we can do a very deep inquiry into their lives, why they want to do plant medicine, and yes, set intention, but to a point, as in my intention setting is very fluid, because I don't want intentions to turn into expectations for people or for them to get attached, because often what they get in the ceremony is not what they want, but it's what they need. And it might just flip into something else as well. But it's good to have a direction, a starting point. What energies do you want to call into your ceremony? That's part of preparation, and really clarifying why you want to do it.
Yeah.
And then what the material that comes up during the ceremony, and then also how you feel afterwards is so important. Just after the ceremony, what comes up for you, and it's about processing what comes through in a way that can be supportive to move towards the direction that you want to move towards and create the changes that you want to. And those messages can be, messages from challenging moments, but also messages from really moments where you feel amazing, where you feel so connected. Those are just as important, that they are the basis that you can use to then look at the more challenging things. that have happened. And you don't need to, one other thing I'd like to say before I finish on this particular question, you don't need to understand everything. It's trusting your psyche that you will retain what's needed, what's useful for you in that point in time, and also that you don't need to understand it on a
Straight away.
cognitive level necessarily. There's so many aspects that come into play, psychological aspects, the physical, the somatic, so important as well, the spiritual, the emotional. So yeah, it's about processing that material in a way that's supportive, that doesn't feel like you need to know everything, and that can really help you getting deeper insights into yourself, into your connection to the divine and to soul, to carry on in a way that feels aligned.
Yeah, that's inspiring and amazing, and I hope a lot of people can take heed. And so I just wanted to come back to this question and why people are inclined to take the leap and explore through psychedelic medicines. Like, I know from my own personal experience, it's a search for yourself through my own experience, and sometimes you can hit a roadblock in life. You don't know where you're going. You just need guidance. You need insights. So yeah, for me, plant medicine was the journey I took, and yeah, I'd like to know, like, through the clients that you've supported, what's the common reason why your clients or people that you know um, walk down this path using psychedelic, using plant medicines?
Again, I'm going to give a general answer to that because,
Yeah, I
again,
know
it's
it's all
different for
changed. Yeah,
everyone. Yeah, but it's interesting because as different as it is, there is a common denominator too. You're right. So there is, and it's usually because there are certain patterns of behavior in their lives. And I can also talk for myself when I first started, where they feel stuck, where they feel that they're not useful for them anymore, and they don't really know how to shift them. And a lot of the time people get to plant medicine, like it was also in my case, because they've tried a lot of other things before. Some people, they just go and they never even tried, I don't know, therapy or breath work or anything
yeah,
like that, or meditation or other tools. Whereas I had tried quite a lot of different things where they weren't working. But then what I realized in my personal experience, they were not working because I was expecting them to do the work. Right.
that's
So it's
another good
about
point.
exactly. So actually, when I got to plant medicine, I was faced with, you do your own work. It's about connecting with your inner master, your inner wisdom. And that was more helpful. It was tougher at times in certain ceremonies. And that's why I was saying also the integration work that I do is about empowering you. It's about creating a safe space where you can do your own work, because you know best out of anyone else what is the right thing for you.
Yeah, that comes back to what you said about connecting again to source, and through through the plant medicines. Again, trusting yourself is, people seem to have lost that trust for themselves. That inner voice that guides them, your intuition. Yeah, a lot of people have lost touch. I'm speaking from experience as well. It's coming back to source, which kind of brings me to, again, I'm still gonna keep it on why people want to do plant medicines. And it's a common theme which I've found is that there's, again, the shadow self, or however you want to call it, parts of yourself that we don't like. And then we go, I want to get rid of this part of myself. I don't like this part of myself because I'm doing this, and I'm messing everything up for not just myself, for other people. And then they end up hating a part of themselves. Like, I'm talking from experience here. I can't speak for anybody else. It's like, you can hate a part of yourself, and you go to these places, or you go seek help from anywhere you go, and you're trying to suppress or get rid of a part of yourself, which I think can be the wrong approach. Maybe, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a great point that you just kind of like, mentioned. And going back to what I was saying before as well. Okay, so the patterns, because the parts of someone's self, they're connected to those patterns that potentially someone wants to shift and they don't like. So again, from personal experience, when I first went in, I was like, I want to get rid of this, right? And then the danger, by the way, of doing that is that you just keep on going to these retreats and expecting the retreat itself again to do the work. At the beginning, I was doing exactly the same as I was doing with the previous methods that I tried, until I started doing integration, properly as well, because I started from myself first. And basically, in time, I realized it's not about getting rid of the patterns. It's not about getting rid of those parts. It's about making friends with them. So part of the work that I do with parts work and sub-personalities is to integrate those aspects, not to deny them. So it's all relational, this integration work, because the integration is connection really at the core. So it's about making friends with those parts of yourself that you don't like, to understand why they are there, but most actually importantly, because actually my approach is more of a coaching approach than a therapy approach, how they are impacting you right now and how you can cooperate with them. And there are sets of questions that you can do, and you establish the relationship from the place in psychosynthesis, at least the way I do it, of your loving observer, of your soul's connection. So that's why I was saying it's really important for us to connect to the soul, like really build a relationship with the transpersonal, so that you can bring in these parts that potentially are challenging and start developing a relationship with them, so that you can integrate them. So even when they pop up and they might never go away, they're not driving your behavior totally. You still are more centered, and you can cooperate with them. And one more thing I like to say about parts, that's what helps people embracing them more. They are there for a good reason. So usually these parts develop earlier in life for survival, because they want to protect you from something that's happening. They want to protect the psyche doesn't create anything by accident. So these are parts that have helped you in the past dealing with some situations that were, difficult to deal with. So there's a reason why they're there. They're not your enemy. Actually, they came to protect you somehow. And there are also other systems like internal family systems that they label parts in different ways. In psychosynthesis, we don't. I don't do it. I keep it more fluid. But there's a good reason why those behaviors and those patterns are in place. There was a good reason why in the past. Now you don't need it anymore, because probably that threat or whatever it was that created them is not there anymore. But you internalize them, and so you continue, having these patterns. It's about understanding why they're there, what they need from you. And also the beautiful thing about this part is that once you make friends, they have gifts for you as well. So they're usually connected to your inner child, or like really like creativity. That's when they say in the shadow there is the golden shadow where you can find purpose. So by actually establishing a relationship, they don't just become your friends and it's easier to deal with them, but you can also find more information about even your purpose and your calling through those really challenging aspects of yourself.
Yeah, everything you've said there just goes to show that taking plant medicines is not a magic pill that fixes everything. Like you said, you have to do the work. If anything, what I get from plant medicines is it shows you an aspect of yourself, unfiltered, like you see yourself, and it's up to you what you want to do with what you've been shown. It's the knowledge that's been presented to you, and yeah, then we've got likes like yourself who help people integrate these parts, of our shadow selves. So I want to speak more about the shadow, because the shadow aspect of ourselves, so many people can label it as so many different things. On a kind of spiritual level, people would like, well, I've heard a lot of stuff about people saying, "Oh, I've got bad energies attached to me," unwanted spirits attached to me that are feeding off me. However you look at it, either way, it's a shadow aspect that needs awareness and light shining on this dark side of yourself. Yeah, can you please talk a bit more about the work you've done with shadows, the shadow aspects?
Of course, yeah. So, I mean, I use, as I said, like, psychosynthesis is one of the tools that I use. I've also kind of trained in shamanism, and I do take some shamanic principles into the integration work that I do with people, because ultimately the plant medicine journey, it is a shamanic journey. That's how I see it. And I want to go back to the entities and what you mentioned earlier as well, these shadow aspects. So, and this is my understanding and what I believe. Obviously, I can't talk for everyone, it's just my belief. But there's a teaching there all the time, even when you feel that a lower energy has attached itself to you. But first of all, for that to happen, there needs to be some kind of agreement at a subconscious level where your frequency matches whatever the entity,
Yeah.
there needs to be a door for the entity to come in, unless, I mean, I don't want to get too much into the, rabbit hole of talking about my magic. I don't know enough about it. And I just want to keep it also light in terms of talking about this in a way that empowers people. That is some kind of level when, it feels that something heavy is with you, is because you let it in. And for me, it's important when I kind of talk to people like about maybe plant medicine journeys that have been challenging for them, because to talk about this, because it's about also taking responsibility for your own frequency, for your own vibration as well. Not to be hard on yourself, but also the reason is, the way I see it, that actually I think is more empowering and useful and supportive, is that if you did let it in, maybe it's because you need to learn from it. There's a teaching there all the time, but there's a teaching in every plant medicine experience. So what is this shadow aspect showing you about yourself? And even if you think it's an entity that's got nothing to do with you, but ultimately we are all one, and I think it's all interconnected anyway. Nothing is really that separate. So if something has come through, whether you want to see as an aspect of yourself or as an entity that has come to you, what's the teaching there? What is that trying to tell you? Because until you try to kind of understand it a little bit more, it's almost like, when they say about making something unconscious conscious, unless you bring it to consciousness to kind of like address it and face it on, and first of all take responsibility for the fact that somehow you let it in as well,
Yeah.
you can't understand why that's there. And I think once that you can understand that, then it's easier to work with it in a way that you can let it go as well. So do I really need this? Do I still need this in my life, for example? And I can't remember who said this, but I was listening to a podcast a little while ago, and I think it was maybe a psychologist, and he was saying basically this: something is in your life still is because you're still learning from it, even if it's something really uncomfortable somehow, and you're not ready to let it go. It's the same thing with, I would say maybe lower frequencies in a sense.
Yeah, it's a hard one to take in, because if you tell somebody about their shadow, and they'd be like, "Yeah, well, you did let it in at some point." It's hard. It's speaking for myself. It's like how did I let that in? Why would I let that in? But would there? It seems like something that could be so elusive. Why you would let something into your life that served you a long time ago, but doesn't serve you now as an adult. Is it important to understand why you opened yourself up in that way to have these sort of like to lower your frequency, to kind of not even to protect yourself, but to kind of, would it be, I don't know if I'm phrasing this right, but is it important to understand why something has been let in?
That's a really good question. It's important if it's supporting you. That's what I would say personally, because you can really get stuck in the story as well, rather than finding something useful that can help you moving forward. And I think the second thing that I mentioned is more important, and understanding exactly
Okay.
why. Also, it's important to be able to bring an element of self-compassion when you're asking why that's come in, because someone could just be very critical of themselves. They're in a critical pop up, and that would just gets you into a loophole, like into kind of like a vicious circle of not feeling great because you've let it in, and then that feeds their energy anyway, if you
Mm,
see what I mean. So I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that's there and not deny it, and then being curious about it, but in a way that doesn't have to be, like a detective curious that you need to know everything.
Yeah.
You don't need to understand everything. Like in the plant medicine journey, you don't need to understand everything. Also trust that at a subconscious level, with the intention that you have for healing, connection, transformation, growth, whatever your intention is, your psyche is doing the work in the background as well. So I think understanding exactly why you don't necessarily need to, and you need to understand just what is supportive for you to then be able to move forward from it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna carry on with the shadow aspect, and I'm gonna give a sort of framework to kind of work from. It's a personal experience um, of a plant medicine journey where I trust what I see. I trust my intuition, and this journey I was confronted with shadow aspects of myself. So these shadow aspects of myself is the reason how I noticed it. I'll just be open and transparent here. I wouldn't. I'd had a. I wouldn't say I've had a problem with alcohol, but it's like I used to keep on going back to it, and through the plant medicine journey, I was shown aspects of myself and what's kind of causing me to be so impulsive at certain times of the day. Because, for example, I'd wake up, in the morning, I'd be have good plans for the day. Like, yeah, I'm going to be so good today. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to smoke. But yeah, the whole day goes by fine. And then nighttime comes. And then I all of a sudden just have this force like pulling me like, you need to go have a drink, or it's just a thought that's just bombarding my head like, go get a drink, even though I fight it like, oh, I don't want to have it. No, I'm not going to go. Anyway, I'll go to the shop. I'm just going to go get a soft drink. Before I know it, I've picked up a can of 4 cans of Guinness or something. That impulse, that drive. I know I don't want to do it. I know what I'm doing is wrong. I don't want to do it, but I'm doing it anyway. So through this journey, I got shown visually that it's like these are low frequency energies attached to me, feeding off my behavior, basically patterns. And it could be even behaviors, patterns of like aggression or frustration, and then all this negativity, and I know. But before this plant medicine experience, I didn't understand why I was like, for so many years I was like, yeah, tonight's the last night, I'm not going to do it tomorrow, and then repeat the same cycle over and over again. So it's like I didn't understand it. But then from the journey it came to my attention that this is it's like a very low energy frequency that's feeding off you. And I got to see them, and I was like, oh. And a lot of it can be ancestral, passed down through generations from our family line. So yeah, so my question when I messaged you quite a while ago regarding the shadow, and is that, okay, yeah, this is a shadow aspect of myself which I don't like, but at the same time, it's still part of who I am. Like, I like to have a head change, if you want to put it that way, like a bit of change of consciousness. And it could be through alcohol, it could be smoking and all sorts. But my question was, how do I channel that into something positive? Because before it was being channeled into something negative, and I'm feeding this negativity with substances that are not good for my that's really toxic for my body. But I know what I like to indulge in. I'm a risk taker. I like to go out, try new things. And because I'm a risk taker, how could my question is, can I channel that same drive I was having for alcohol and channel it into something more positive? Like, oh yeah, I'll go eat so much hawthorn today, and and just, I don't know. It's an aspect of myself which I know is it's part of me, and I can't push it away, and I can't deny it, but I can channel it hopefully into something more positive. So would that be part of like an integration, trying to integrate some sort of parts of myself into? something more positive.
Yeah, it would be. The question that comes to me is that have you really embraced it, the fact that it's there, or is that still part of you that doesn't want it to be there and is denying it? Because to be able to integrate it, that's what's really needed. And it's tough, especially when you feel that these patterns are, patterns of like self-sabotage in some ways, that as you progress on your path and you're doing lots of other progress in other areas, you're like, oh, that's still there. There would be a question. So in this case, for example, what I was saying about being curious earlier on, obviously this is doing something for you somehow. So it might be controversial what I'm going to say, but it's not necessarily wrong that you're doing it, because you're somehow medicating something in a sense. And it's about understanding what that something is.
Yeah.
And exactly. And as I said, you don't need to understand absolutely everything about it, but the core mechanism of it, what that's doing for you. And that really makes me think about the work of Gabor Mate. He's really great in kind of like talking about addiction and the use of also psychedelic integration for it. That it's saying it's not, you're not doing something, you're just medicating yourself for something. It's not necessarily wrong. You're actually trying somehow to make your life better with it. Although actually the result of it is the opposite sometimes.
Yeah, it's like not being happy in my own skin. So then I cover it,
So
mask it with something else, but not really understanding what I'm covering up.
that's it. So what is this discomfort that you're trying to medicate? So that would be the integration work to go there and being curious about it and really find out what is it that you're trying to medicate. And once that you understand that more, and also you embrace that part, because again, that part is trying again to make your life better somehow, although it doesn't. It's trying to give you some kind of rewards for not feeling great. If you see what I mean, it's short term. And once that you there's more understanding on what's really behind it, then can be more integrated, and the energy can maybe channeled on, okay, what could be other ways of dealing with these emotions when they come up, because they're not necessarily going to stop coming up. It's more about learning how to deal with them in a different way. So putting another pattern in place that can be more constructive for you and more supportive for you. And there will be relapses on things like that, because I do it as well with other things, sugar, other things anyway, where that's the thing about addiction recovery. I'm not saying this is it, but even soft addictions, this is what I'm saying, doesn't have to be, a kind of like a hard drug addiction necessarily. You are expected to have relapses, and what really is important is how well you recover from them. It's not about not having them ever again. It's about recovering better and better from them
It's a
and putting in
process.
place this new pattern, this new system every time. But you need to have a system that you want to, something that is really calling you as well to put in place. Otherwise, what's the motivation?
Again, finding purpose and finding meaning in what you do. So going back to why, like finding out the core reason why we try and mask things, maybe could be something that's happened. But then again, what if nothing has happened and it's just started off as a habit of sort of having fun, and then it develops into a habit, and then sooner or later you've lost control. Now you've lost your self-discipline to control your intake of whatever it is that you're using. So I don't think necessarily. Maybe I'm in conflicting myself. Maybe because I sometimes think I've tried to reflect on myself. Like, is there a reason why I started drinking? The only kind of thing I could kind of put it back to is no, I was just having fun and I enjoyed the kind of states I was on. And then it's like every day now trying to chase that sort of level of that state that I was in the previous time. But then it's lost control along the way, and it's like, oh, I'm chasing a tail that's basically like I'm chasing my tail.
Yeah, I mean, but the chasing happens because at some level you're not quite happy where you are in the moment. So it's about very much not being, to some degree, not totally okay with where you're at, so that you want more than what you have in the present moment. And I would say at the core of that is it's a disconnection from the self and from source, going back to that, and that topic that we were talking about earlier on, because of course you can start doing something because it's fun to do it, but why does it develop into something else that becomes a coping mechanism from when you're not feeling 100% in the present moment? That is the question, because that's what it is, right? It becomes something, it gives you reward, and is a kind of reward system that's in place that, is going to bring you, good feelings and euphoria and whatever brings you. Then it becomes a coping mechanism when you put it in place where, you're not 100% in the moment. And it can be very subtle, like you're saying, that you feel like you're okay. But if you're okay in the moment, you wouldn't think, okay, I can make it even better with a drink if you're totally okay. So there's something going on, maybe subconsciously as well in that moment there. Some belief system, some kind of beliefs that are quite, and that I would say usually those beliefs that come from a disconnection with the self, where you feel that you're not enough as you are in the moment. You need more. You need something else.
Yeah, that's just you highlighting so much stuff that could be not in our conscious awareness, and again, it's taking the time out just to still yourself, sit still, and just listen to what comes through. And in this world where there's so much distractions, and sort of everything is like it's designed to keep people disconnected. And again, I feel like our attention is getting fought for by the media and all sorts. It's like everything's so colorful. No, come here, come look at this. And it's like everything from within is, you're not looking within no more. You're looking outside, like what can I get to stimulate me? What's the next fix? And it's very, I wouldn't say it's worrying, but it's scary. And the more people doing this work and looking within themselves through plant medicines, just kind of gives me a little bit of hope. It's a challenging one for a lot of people out there, especially people that feel lost. I've got lots of compassion, really heartfelt feelings towards the whole of humanity. If you ask me, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. And so it's with psychedelics. But it's coming to the Western world quite strong now. I don't know if you know much about the age that we're in, or the age that we came out of, like the age of Pisces. Now we're in the age of Aquarius. It's still a subject that I'm not really going to talk much about it because I don't know too much about it. I'm still learning, but the way everything is shifting, I just hope people can take more of a deep dive into themselves. So, Clara, through your shamanic practices, you don't actually use any plant medicines, right? Or plant shamanic journeys.
The shamanic journeys.
Yes.
I do journeys with drumming.
Yeah.
And I do integration on them, and those are very good integration kind of tools to do those journeys, because you can put yourself back in a trance state with the drumming, and there's a different level of kind of consciousness, than when you're taking plant medicine, and then work with it, afterwards to do integration. And you can even do drumming journeys to go back to a plant medicine journey that you've had. So it's all about, really, it's almost like a muscle that you practice with your imagination to learn how to tap into that space, whether you have taken plant medicine or not. And to be honest, we do that every night when we go to sleep. It's just that it's unconscious rather than being conscious. But we do shamanism every night. We have that innate ability to travel to other states of other realms of consciousness, to regenerate, because that's when we sleep, and to get healing and to get information and then come back. So we do that every night. So in the shamanic work that I do is very much about practicing that, but in a more conscious way, with the drumming and with things that can help you getting into a trance state.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is just I know psychedelics is not for everyone. Not everyone will want to venture down the route of any plant medicines. But it's nice to know that there is other modalities that people can get involved with if they feel fearful about taking anything that any medicines that will induce um, altered states of consciousness. So I'm hoping for any viewers and listeners that if they're feeling lost or just don't know where their life is going to be going, you can always get in touch with Clara and have a shamanic drum journey and then see what comes through for you. Yeah. So how often do you hold shamanic journeys? Do you do that yourself, right?
Yeah, I kind of tend to do them more one-to-one. I've done a few circles, but that's part of a one-to-one integration program that, I do with people as well. So I mainly focus on integration. So I use the shamanic drumming as a tool for integration, and usually for people that do plant medicine integration as well.
Okay.
So I work one-to-one. I will kind of also kind of soon launch in 8 weeks integration program for people, so they can do it in community, and then included in that there will be some one-to-one sessions with me as well. So I'm creating different programs that are going to be soon on my social media, advertised. But the shamanic journeying, the circles, I don't do them that often now. I might do them more in the future, but I use them as a tool for integration mainly because that's what I'm focusing on, and that's my mission. That's what I've heard from the medicines, and I've been taking it for years now. That's actually at the moment at least, my mission with the medicine is the integration.
Yeah, so you've just touched upon like that's you got that sort of message. So you've been put down the path which you feel is your purpose, your meaning to life. So yeah, the Search for Meaning podcast, we are looking for ways to try and find how we can add value to our life and find meaning and purpose in the things that we do.
I had a lot of resistance, just to not to interject too much to this, by the way. It's not something I was like, oh, that's what I want to do, and I'm definitely going to do it, because I knew there was going to be a challenge, because integration is still not really understood as much, and plant medicine ceremonies are much more popular than plant medicine, integration still in this country is not as understood. And it's a really kind of emerging, it's been there for a few years, there's an emerging practice and I knew it was going to be a challenge. And also because it requires me to do deep integration all the time, because it starts with you.
Yes.
So I actually had a lot of resistance when it first came up, because I was like, okay, also, do I want to be working with plant medicine all the time? I mean, I was such a different person when I started with this. I was very much in the matrix and very much into what I was doing. I had a very different job as well, which I was very identified with. So I was very identified with the external when I first started. So for me, it's been such a journey through the medicine to then really let go of that identity and connecting more. And the challenge is not to identify with this either, because it's now my calling, but it might change in a few years. It's about being open to what kind of my soul tells me and spirit kind of tells me through the medicine journeys, but also after, of course, during integration. So it's about really going with the flow, trusting, feeling connected, and not getting too attached to anything, which is really, really tough. So yeah, that's been my journey with it.
How many years since you've been on this journey now, Clara?
It's coming up to 9 years now.
9 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but I was doing kind of other practices before. Like I started doing kind of Buddhist meditation about 20 years ago. I was very on and off with everything that I was doing all the time. I was like into the matrix, out of the matrix, and never like a balance between the two, because I mean we have to be. We are living in a 3D world, so it's about how healthy can I be when I connect to it. So I've been on a kind of like a spiritual quest for quite a long time, but I was always on and off. Even with shamanism, I've done shamanism before I was doing plant medicine. I did it for a bit and then I left it. And then when I started doing plant medicine, I actually kind of crystallized a lot of things for me. I started being more consistent with all the things that I was doing when I started doing integration. So after a little while.
At any point along your journey, did you ever think that you may need some help, like external guidance from probably somebody who's experienced a similar journey like yourself?
Oh, I do all the time. That's the thing. So that's my belief that if you're doing this kind of work with people, whether it's transformational work, healing work, you need someone to monitor you. So I have an integration coach myself, and I've had that for years. So I think it's really important to have that because it's like a mirror, where they might help you see something that you're not seeing for yourself. It doesn't matter where you're at in your journey. And that's what I feel like a lot of people, even like spiritual leaders, that they stop doing their shadow work. That's how you get cults.
Yeah.
They start doing their inner work. It's always good to have someone monitor you because we heal through connection, we grow through connection, and I really value that one-to-one as much as I value group work as well and workshopping groups. I think also having a balance of that and one-to-one is really important.
Yeah.
So, and I also believe that it all starts with yourself. So always want to kind of feel the integration process that I'm going through. It's ongoing. It never stops.
Yeah, you just touched upon something there, about a lot of these a lot of shamanic practitioners or facilitators are still some, I've seen people still in their parts. So just because you're doing this work doesn't mean like everything is 100%, because we are human at the end of the day. And it's quite astonishing as well to me to know that there's politics everywhere you go, and there's always going to be tension in every sort of community you get into. No matter if it's a good community, a bad community, there's equal goodness and badness in everything. Um, so for people who are thinking of like going down the path of trying plant medicines, this is something that I can't stress enough anyway. But do your due diligence on the person who's going to be serving you, and do your background checks. Yeah, I've seen and watched lots of stories where, because you're playing with danger, it's a dangerous thing to be doing. People think, oh yeah, we're humans, the energy, we don't see energy. It could be this hypothetical thing, but as soon as you start dabbling around and playing with these things, it can actually, cause really bad things, and you can open yourself up to even more negativity and things that bring you down. Yeah, so the politics.
Yeah, and it's just really important that people, the people ahead are still doing their inner work and they don't think that they've done it all, like you were saying. You're never done. It's just there's always a deeper layer, but you could say there's a deeper layer of healing. There's a deeper layer of self-discovery and connection to your soul that you can get. So it doesn't have to be, I still have healing to do. It's like I'm getting deeper with that connection that I start cultivating. And that never ends for anybody, anyone. And if someone who's ahead thinks, kind of like a leader of a group or is organizing other plant medicine circles or other things that they think I'm done, you never really, you can take breaks from it, of course, but it's an ongoing thing. You're not above or below anyone else. That's how I see it.
Hmm. Would you recommend any sort of safe practices, like when you go into this? Is there any sort of like that any practices that you do to kind of protect yourself and make sure that what you're doing you know, is with good intentions? Or have you had any experiences where maybe you haven't done a certain practice right and then something has gone wrong? Have you noticed anything like that? What challenges have come up like during this along this journey so far?
For me,
Yeah.
okay, I think that the biggest self kind of like a protection that you can do for yourself practice is self-love. I know it sounds quite hippie,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
believe that when you are really centered in your heart and you are really treating yourself well before you go into ceremony, especially when you prepare yourself well, you're eating well, you're paying attention to what you let into your field, especially just before a plant medicine ceremony, what you watch, the people that you surround yourself with, the self-talk that you have. When you pay attention to all that and you make sure that you're aligned and it's all, you kind of let go, also stress and overworking, when you kind of consciously prepare for a journey that way, you're already going in a way that you are very protected because your energy field is very high frequency. And so, going back to what we were saying earlier, you're not letting things in. So in relation to that, when I had challenging kind of journeys, it was because I hadn't done that. So I went into some journeys where I was coming straight from work and then traveling on a Friday evening to maybe a ceremony, and then I really struggled, and I had real struggles also in purging. I was in that kind of nauseous I'm talking about, grandmother, working with grandmother, nauseous kind of state for hours, and it was really tough. And it was bringing up all sorts of, challenging visions, self-talk. And then afterwards, when I start kind of again doing integration and preparing properly, but not just preparing, just living my life in a different way, that really changed. That only happened a couple of times. And I was like, it was definitely because I was stressed and and I did the dieta, but maybe not 100% before going in the preparation. And I was also, surrounded, my friendships really changed since I've been doing this work as well. So also the people that I was surrounding myself with, and there was nothing wrong with those people, but it was just not, the interactions were not nurturing, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So I would say pay attention for, if you really, also for self-protection and for going in, feeling good, really paying attention to what you're bringing in. And as I said, it's not just a few days before, it's even weeks before. What are you bringing into the ceremony? Because if you work like crazy until 2 days before and then you have 2 days rest, it's better than nothing, but you're still going to bring in all that stressful kind of energy that you've had for a couple of weeks. And there's nothing like stress, by the way, for, especially for your nervous system to kind of, for the chemistry in your body to just create all sorts of things.
Yeah.
On a journey, which is amplified.
I know all too well about stress and personal experience stress. My body just indicates, mouth goes dry, hands start sweating. It's just an indicator of stress, which I haven't felt in a very long time. But the body is amazing at speaking to us, and we just have to pay attention and listen. Yeah, the work you do is really profound. Like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand what you're saying and what you do is right. It's just a feeling of knowing. You just know it's the right thing. So, yeah, I commend you for your work, Clara. It's amazing.
Thank you, Julio. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So,
and I really appreciate what you're doing here with the podcast as well.
yeah.
Bringing your voice
Thank
online
you.
to be heard.
Yes. Also, whilst we're talking about podcasts, for everyone that's listening, Clara has her own podcast. Would you like to share a bit more about that, please?
Sure, yeah. So I've just launched it. It's called the Psychedelic Integration Compass. And it's a podcast where, we talk about different ways of doing integration, also personal stories and personal experiences. And really it's a podcast that's designed to bring a lot of different methods in, holistic methods. So some are psychology based, some are shamanic. We're talking about dietas there as well. I've done 3 episodes so far, but I'm gonna bring in the somatic aspect as well soon. So with other guests. And if you want to come, it's on all platforms now, so you can find on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. And if anyone wants to join me there, please come along and listen.
Yes, please show Clara your support. And if you have any questions about psychedelics and integration and anything challenging, and you just need guidance, help, we are all there to help you. You can get hold of myself, get hold of Clara. I don't know if there's anything else that I want to cover, Clara. I think I've kind of touched upon the main points of, we've kind of gone over a bit of an overview of integration. I know this is a very, very broad, subject topic.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many avenues you could go down. But I'm enjoying seeing your podcast and seeing you grow, seeing everybody grow. I'm not going to keep us on for too long. I think we've covered the main bits. If there's anything else, I'll just be like, Clara, come back on the podcast. We need you again. We forgot to cover this, that, and this. You know, I know sometimes I may not have covered everything because I know people may have questions. And if you do have questions, please send them over. We'd like to know your thoughts. You know, help us grow as well. Show us other aspects of ourselves that we haven't covered. And yeah, have you got anything else that you'd like to share, Clara?
I'm just gonna say you can also find me online. Just in, if you wanna interested in one-to-ones with me, at my website is calltosource.com. Or you can find me on Instagram at called.to.source. And I just want to thank you so much for having me here. I'm so grateful. That's what I want to say. And I'm really glad that, it's important to talk about integration, to spread the message so that it's more understood and more valued as well in the medicine world. So thank you so much for this.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's really such an honor, and I hope a lot of people can benefit from our conversation. And if anything, it raises more questions for them to get even more curious and look within themselves and live a better life for yourself and for all your loved ones, which makes the world a better place. It all starts within, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. And thank you so much to all the guests, the viewers, and thank you so much, Clara.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording.